Hello guys, you are welcome to level 2 of our character model and we're going to continue from where we stop. So select our character's face and say tab for edit mode and say 3 for face selection. Select these faces and we're going to extrude it and say E to extrude, right click to release and S to scale to this point, S to scale a little bit and say E to extrude inwards and Ctrl R to add loop cut of 3. So we're going to change this from our orientation from default to normal. I'm going to move this on the Z axis forward. Okay, now what we're going to do next now is to create our character neck and we'll say tab for edit mode and we'll come to our right view and say 3 for face selection. We can create from this region, but for let's change this back and we'll select this region for our characters neck and we're going to right click and say loop 2 and say circle to say X and X to scale on the X axis a little bit and let's say delete on our keyboard to delete that face. 1 for vector selection. We can come to our bottom view so we can adjust these vertices. So now we say 2 for edge selection. Select this loop and come here and say E to extrude, right click to release. So we can move this way. You can say S to scale and move this upwards. Say S to scale a little bit. You can move this on the X axis to create a loop there and say E to extrude, arrow to rotate. You can right click and come to loop 2 and say circle. You can say S to scale and say E to extrude. So this is what we have here now. Say Alt Z for wireframe, Ctrl arrow to add a loop cut, move on the X axis, move this way, 1 for vector selection. You can align this now and see, select this loop and move on the X axis this way. So this is what I've done now. Work on the back side of the character neck. Select this and say S and Y to scale on the Y axis. Say S and Y to scale on the Y axis. Move this forward. Select this loop, move this loop forward, X and Y. Move this forward also. Now this for our character neck. If I turn this on, you see that our character neck is very smooth. This is okay. So let's adjust some of these vertices. So what we'll do now, we're going to say turn this off back and say 2 for edge selection. Select this loop here and say E to extrude, right click to release, move this way and move this way. So we're going to create a very simple character. 1 for vector selection, move these vectors this way, move these vectors this way. Alt Z, select this S and Y, move this forward, S and Y again. S and Y to scale, following our character reference. 2 for edge selection, say E to extrude. So what we do now is we right click now and come to our loop tool and say circle. 1 for vector selection, select these vectors and click that, say Alt Z, select all these vectors, move this way. So select this back and click that, say G twice to move. Select this and move on the X axis. Push this inwards, push this inwards. Let's see if we can move this inwards. Following our character reference. So now we can move this inwards also. A 2 for edge selection, select this edge and say E to extrude. Let's leave this to this point first, and now let's create our character hand. 1 for vector selection, Alt Z, and now we can align the region for our character hand. Move this inwards, Ctrl R to add one loop cut here. 3 for face selection, select this face. Before we do that, let's push this inwards also. Now 3 for face selection, select this face and say E to extrude. Right click to release, move it this way. Rotate. 1 for vector selection. So we're going to shape these hands like this. Alt Z to move these vectors upwards. This is basically a simple character hand. We need to just shape this properly. Ctrl R to add one loop cut here. Alt Z. So what we'll do now is very simple now. We're going to adjust these vertices and say 3 for face selection. Select these vertices, right click, come to loop tool and say circle. So in our front view now, we're going to move this to this point. 1 for vector selection, Alt Z. We're going to move that vertices inwards. G twice to move these vectors this way. G twice to move. G twice to move these vertices. So say 3 for face selection. You can select this here and say E to. Okay, let's delete this. Delete that face. I need to delete this face also, and so delete that face. So we can now arrange our character hand properly. Move this way. We can move that forward a little bit. Okay, now we can do Ctrl R to add one loop cut here, Alt Z. Okay, now let's work on the back. G twice to move this to this point. This is okay for us. We can say Ctrl R to add one loop cut here. We can remove that loop. We don't need that loop. So now we're going to move this Alt Z, G twice to move this loop forward, and select this, move this way. Okay, so this is good now. Ctrl R to add one loop cut here also. Move this inwards, select this loop, and move slightly, move inwards also. So what we do now is very simple. So this for our character torso. There is a very, so we move this upwards to this point. So I can delete these vertices first. So I can work with only this. But Z, T2 for edge selection, select this edge, and say F to fill. Ctrl R to add 3 loop cuts, and let's move on the X axis. One for vector selection, move this towards this point. Select this. First, let's select this and let's move downwards. We'll select these vertices and move downwards. Select this other vertices, this other one, and move downwards like this. So we are not seeing our torso, but we are ensuring that we know where our torso starts from. So we are improvising. So we need to move this upwards a little bit. So select these vertices, move them inwards. Select this also, and move inwards. So this for our character torso. For the bum, let's move this backwards also. You can see Ctrl R to add one loop cut here again. Let's just move that backwards. So this is nice for our character torso. So we're going to bring in a cylinder, but first let's count the numbers of vertices here. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'm going to bring in a cylinder of 8 vertices. So tab for object mode, Shift A, go to mesh, bring in a cylinder, come to this place that says add cylinder, click on it, and change the vertices to 8. So now you can say S to scale uniformly. Move this to this point, S to scale, G to grab and move. So S to scale this. So we are improvising. For our character select, tab for object mode, Alt Z. Select these vertices down here. Say 3 for face selection, Alt Z again. Say E to extrude to this point. and say S to scale, E to extrude again, say 1 for vector selection or Z, select this, 3 for face selection, X to delete and say delete face, 2 for edge selection, select this loop here, arrow to rotate, and let's move this upwards, S to scale this, and S and Y on this axis to scale on the Y axis. So now we can figure out where our character knee is. So now say 2 for edge selection, select all of this and say X to delete and delete face. Select this and move downwards to this point. Move downwards to this point. You say E to extrude. Select this and say G twice to move this loop upwards. G twice to move this upwards. S to scale. Select this loop and say S to scale. So this will be my character knee. The character knee is going to start from this region. And I just hope this is the right thing, and I'm going to work on it also. So this is where my character knee is going to start. Control R to add one loop cut here. And Control R to add one loop cut here. So I'm going to select this loop, these two loop, and say G twice to move this to this point. G twice to move to this point. So I'm going to select this loop and move forward a little bit. And I'll say 3 for face selection. Select all of this. I'm going to say E to extrude, right click to release, say S to scale, and move on the Y axis forward. 1 for vector selection, select these vertices and move forward. So Alt Z. So now what we'll do next now is to join this to this. Say tab for object mode. So we're going to select our character leg and hold shift and select the body and click Ctrl J on our keyboard to join. So now we have another leg that appears in this region, which is okay for us. So what we'll do next now is to join this region to this region. Tab for edit mode. But first, Alt Z, I think I'll have to bring this, push this upwards a little bit. Select this and bring this upwards a little bit. So I'll select this to this and say M, word at last. Select this to this, M, word at last. Say M, word at last. Select this and this, say M, word at last. Select this to this, say M, word at last. Select this to this, say M, word at last. This to this, M, word at last. Select this to this and M on your keyboard and say word at last. So now we can now refine the torso very well. G twice to move. From here, push this inwards a little bit. Okay, G twice to move these vertices. You Ctrl R to add one loop cut here. Say S and X, or let's say S to scale uniformly. Select this and move inward this way. Move outwards. Move this inwards. Move this inwards. So we are playing around this, so we are trying to figure out how our character is going to look like very well. And G twice to move this to this point. We can move this inwards also. We can select this and move this backwards a little bit. Now let's work on our character pack. G twice to move this point. So G twice to move these vertices also. So ensure you arrange these vertices properly. Okay, now we can come here now and turn the subdivision surface and see how our character looks like. Come to our front view. So we can work on this place of our character neck. I think that spot is going inside. Move this forward. Select this and move this forward also. We have some errors here in our character neck. We need to move this backwards. Okay, always try to make some few adjustments at every point in time. So always examine your character while modeling. And move vertices. You need to bring this way back. Let's say 3, 4, right view. So select these vertices down here. Let's move this downwards a little bit. It is okay. So I want to consider Alt Z. Move this upwards. No. Let's leave this down. Leave this way. It's okay for the knee to be here. So try and ensure yours is looking like this. So we're going to bring in a cube for our character leg, and mind us, you know that our vertices is still 8 here. So if you count all these vertices here, they are 8 in numbers. So we're going to consider that. So tap for object mode, shift A, come to mesh and bring in a cube, and say S to scale this cube, S to scale again, S and Z to scale on the Z axis, and come to our right view and say G to move, and S and Y to scale on the Y axis. Bring it down this way. So tap for object mode. What we need to do next now is very simple. We need to select these vertices here and say S and Y to scale on the Y axis. Move this way. S and X to scale on the X axis. So or Z, select this and move downwards like this. Control arrow to add two loop cuts here. You can select this and move this upwards this way, and these two and move this upwards. The Alt Z. You can select this and say S and Y a little bit. Control arrow to add one loop cut here, and S and X instead of X and Y. Sorry for that. S and X to scale. S and X to scale inwards. Select this loop and say G twice to move backwards a little bit. Select this loop and say S and X to move that. What we do next now is to say control arrow. So we have how many vertices here? I say slash. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. We need to add one here. So now we have 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and add another one here. Control arrow to add one loop cut here. So we can have 8 vertices. So I will say 3 for face selection. Select this and say delete on your keyboard. Delete this face. Say 2 for edge selection. Hold Alt, select this edge. Right click, come to your loop tool and say circle. And say S and Y to scale on the Y axis. Slash to unhide all. 1 for vector selection. Select this vectors. Select this vectors and move backwards. And say S and X to scale that inwards a little bit. So select this and say S and X to scale this inwards, looking like this. So now I can select this now and select this and push upwards. And I'll say Ctrl arrow to add one loop cut here. So I can select these 3 vertices. In my right view, I can push them forward this way. I can select this middle one, push forward this way. I can move this, try to shape this also. And shape this like this. So this is basically how to create a simple character leg. So I'm going to select this also. Come here and say S to scale. Alt Z. S to scale. Alt Z again. So I will select this and say tab. And I'm going to move this upwards. Tab, and I'm going to move this and say E to extrude. No. 2 for edge selection. And E to extrude. 1 for vector selection. And move this forward to this point. Select this and move this forward. And say S and X to scale that. Move this downwards also. And select these 2 vertices and say S and X. And move them downwards. Say A to select all. Then in my front view, I can say arrow and Z to rotate facing like this. I can move this way. S to scale. I want this to be a little bit bigger, following my character reference. push this way. So now if I've done this, now I'm going to select this and hold shift, select this and say Ctrl J to join that. And now we have our character leg looking sweet. I can turn this off first and say tab for edit mode. So now I can join all these vertices, but first I make sure that it is being aligned in here also. I can select this, ensure you select this and move this. Let's move this backwards. Select this and let's move this forward to align with our character leg or design. So this is okay now. So we can start joining. M to word at center. Select these two, hold shift to select multiple. M to word at center. Select this and this, M to word at center. Select this and this, M on your keyboard, say word at center. M word at center. M word at center. M word at center. And M word at center. So now I can make some few adjustments. Select all these and I can move this way just to make some few adjustments and ensure my character leg is straight. I'm having issues here, so I can select this and move this way. Hit G twice to move. Just ensure to shape your character leg properly. Move this to this direction. So now let's examine our character leg and ensure it's nice. Let's turn this off and let's see G to move twice. Now this is okay now for our character leg and we are good to go. Now let's create our character hand, which is very simple. So now let's calculate how many vertices we have here. Tap for edit mode. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 also. We want to bring a cylinder. Shift A to bring a cylinder. Come to mesh and bring in a cylinder. So our cylinder is still 8. So we're going to S to scale. S to scale again. Move this upwards. S to scale. Bring it to this point. S to scale. Say R to rotate. Let's rotate it this way and say S to scale a little bit, and let's bring it this way also. S to scale and tap for object mode or Z. Select this and say let's scale this. S to scale, move this upwards. S to scale and R to rotate. Or Z, let's select this. 3 for face selection, E to extrude, and say S to scale. Move this way. 2 for edge selection, Alt Z, 1 for vector selection, select this and say 3 for face selection, E to extrude, S to scale uniformly. So select this and move this to this point. So we are ensuring that we are following our character's hand. Ctrl R to add one loop cut here, and S to scale this. Ctrl R to add one loop cut, press S to scale, and S to scale, or Z. So now this is our elbow, our character's elbow. We say Ctrl R to add one loop cut here, bring this down. Ctrl R to add one loop cut here. We can select this and hold, or select this and say G twice to move this upwards. G twice, move this way, and select this center one. I'm going to move this backwards, just a little bit backwards that way. And select this and say arrow to rotate. Select this and say arrow to rotate that loop. I can select this now and say X to delete and delete that face. So I need to select this now and say S and Y, scale on the Y axis. So that's 9. I'll say 1 for vector selection. Now let's examine our character hand, Alt Z. So we should ensure that we are following our reference very well at every point in time. It is good to go now. And so what we'll do next now, but I want to bring this elbow up. I want to select this loop and say G twice. Let's move this up. G twice to move this up. G twice, move this loop up. G twice to move this loop up. Ctrl R to add one loop cut there. This is nice now. What I will do next now is to say tab for object mode. Select this arm and hold shift, select the character body and say Ctrl J to join, and say tab for edit mode. So now we can join all these vertices together. Select this and say M, where at center, M, where at center. Move this way. Say M, where at center. This to this, M, where at center. This to this, M, where at center. This to this, M, where at center. So we have this and this, M, where at center, and this to this, M, where at center also. So now let's examine our character hand. G twice to move this way. So we have that vertices, we can move it downwards, move it inwards like this, and see what's happening out there. We can select this and say G twice. Let's move these vertices. Ctrl R to add one loop cut there. And say G to move that loop. And let's make some few adjustments here also. If we've done this, we can examine our character hand and let's make some changes. G twice to move, G twice to move this. Let's turn our subdivision surface up on. If you watch, there's a little bit sharp. Something is looking sharp there, but we're going to solve that now. And let's say tab for edit mode, click for face selection, select this face and say delete on your keyboard to delete that face. So now we'll say tab for, so let's turn subdivision surface, tab for object mode, right click and say shade smooth. And if you watch now, if you have something like this now, you don't have to panic about it. It's something we can solve. So one for vector selection, something we can solve. We'll say A to select all, and 3 for face selection. Come to where we have mesh and go to normals and say recalculate outside. So that's to solve that now, so we don't have that off loop again. So tab for edit mode, 1 for vector selection. Now let's continue shaping our character body. We can turn this off and say Ctrl R to add one loop cut here. Move that loop, bring this loop downwards. Also move this. Tap for edit mode, so we can always make some changes. Also always make some changes. You can select this loop here and select this loop here, say 2 for edge selection, and do Ctrl B on your keyboard to bevel that, just to demarcate the arm from the body. So we can turn this now and say 1 for vector selection. Come to our right view. Let's just do some few changes. So let's turn this on and see what our progress is. So this is good now. Okay, now we've come to the end of level 3 of level 2. Sorry for that. And in level 3, we're going to continue by modeling our character hand, creating the shirts and the character hair. So thanks for watching, and please don't forget to watch the next level.